Thank you for listening and welcome to the Hitting Your Mark podcast. Today we speak to Ryan Northcott, interviewed by me, Chelsey Mark. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Enjoy the show. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. My name is Chelsey Mark. I'm an actor, host, and filmmaker here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I'm honored to introduce Ryan Northcott. Hey!
Woo!
And we're done.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks everybody. See you later.
No. Come back. Yeah. So, I promoted you, or part of it, as you know, you have this iconic role in Mystery Alaska, which is an iconic hockey movie. But your role specifically at that time in 1999 would have been like the greatest role for any hockey kid or actor on the planet.
Yeah.
We're gonna dive right into it, and I have a 1-minute clip that I'm going to show to everyone so they kind of understand what's going on. But I chose this clip because at the time, you know, Russell Crowe, he's still huge, but at the time he would have been monster.
I think about it now and it's like, God, mind blowing.
I'm going to just tell you about the scene before I say it. It's the one of where he comes and breaks the ice with you. Were you nervous on the day, or what was it like?
It wasn't too, I think this is probably part of production that we had already met, already hung out, already done a bunch of stuff. So it was cool. I have a funny little, I think this is in the diner, right? Is that this scene? Yeah. So you'll see there's a little like smirk. I don't know if it gets to that part in this clip, but when we shake hands, there's like a little bit of a smirk that we both give each other. We were doing, when we were actually shaking hands, that we were like tickling each other's little palm. You can't see it, but it's just a little, you know.
I was going to compliment you on that smirk, because that smirk is something that it was like, it so fit that scenario. Yeah.
Well, and I'm not sure if it was his way of, you know, I mean, we'll get into that, I'm sure, but like how new to like film I was at that point. So I think, I don't know if it was his way of just like, hey, here's how we're going to do the scene. And then I'm just a goofy, you know, young guy. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to do it back. So
I'm just going to do it back with one of the most iconic stars at the moment on the planet. Just do that.
I was very naive and very, very green to production. So I think it helped, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure it would. So we'll take a look at it right now.
Guys, it ain't my birthday.
He's better. You're in the Saturday game.
I could go down as fast as I come up.
Yeah. No, there's no way.
Hey, I'm next. They'll be calling me next. Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Why don't you get yourself that milkshake? Better not hear your grades are dropping off.
They won't, sir.
You skate like you can. You'll be fine. License?
Sheriff.
Woo! Yo, I'll give you some of this right here. Man, that was like, I can't imagine, like you're a great actor. Even if you were green at that time, like everything worked. It's like, how did was that all you're doing? Or was the director like, oh, do this, do that? Or how did that come about?
No, it was, so Jay Roach was the director who's directed like Meet the Parents, Meet the Fockers, all of Austin Powers, just a Bombshell, which I think was the most recent one. But he was good. I never really remember a ton of him saying, okay, this is not good. So just, you know, was the nicest director you could ever ask for. And so, but I think if I look at that time, I think I just fit into that role so perfectly, because it's just, I was the kid. I was Stevie Weeks, and there's that kind of, you know, little bit of a goofy, you know, naive, like I've said, inexperienced aspect to that role, and I think I just fit right into that.
When I look at that role, I also like you like great casting as well. Like you were him. And I also think like to me, it was very eerie how you actually look like Sidney Crosby, you know?
Yeah.
So it's eerie how that he played this role and then Sidney Crosby comes up like, I don't know. I just found that kind of like interesting.
Yeah. And Sidney Crosby, I don't think, well, yeah, Sidney Crosby wouldn't have been Sidney Crosby at that time either. So
yeah, I don't even know how old he would have been in 99.
Maybe young. Yeah.
So I want to explain to everyone how this interview came about. Is that I said I don't want to talk about me, but I kind of have to in a way. So I'm an actor, professional actor, host, and filmmaker, and so I'm writing the script right now about hockey. And part of my research, I have a writing mentor. Shout out to Eva Thomas, the greatest mentor on earth, my story editor. I have to pick these movies to do research on, and Mystery Alaska is one of them. So obviously, I'm going to the movie. I'm like, Stevie Weeks, like, what a great character. Who played this guy? And I IMDb it, and it's you. And know and behold that last year on the set of Tribal, APTN's Tribal, for my role on my one day I was on the set, I meet you, Ryan Northcott, in the tent. And I'm thinking, literally, this is what I thought. I'm like, who is this guy? He's either totally fresh or an actor who's like, which is the way we all should be as actors, like just blessed and happy to be on the set. Cause you were like, you made my day, to be honest. You were quirky and fun and friendly. I'm like, this guy is amazing. I'm like, man. And I felt bad because I'm like, I wanted to hang out with you more, but I'm like, you got to go. You got to leave the set, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's so funny. Like, what a funny connection. I've held your severed leg, not to spoil anything, but
yeah, well, it's
theoretically, no. But it's such a bizarre. I mean, I think the acting world, especially even across the country, is pretty small. Mm-hmm. It's incredible how many people you just know through different people and that sort of thing. But going back to what you said about being cool and stuff like that. Now, I think when I was younger, probably when I was at Mystery Alaska stage, I think there was this cockiness that I had. Because you're young, you make a pretty decent amount of money, and then you move to LA and everything like that. You just think, everything's gonna come down. This is gonna be great. And you're that classic, like, not a nice person. Well, not a nice person. You just there's this cockiness about it, and I think now I quit acting for a long time, or at least wasn't doing much of it, and I thought. As I've gotten back into it now, I think over the last like 3 or 4 years, it's like, actually, this is, I'm just happy to be here.
That's great.
Yeah. And you meet cool people like yourself and yeah.
Thanks.
And you think, God, not many people get to do this. And it's a blessing.
This is a question I want to ask you. Like, so how did you get that role, by the way?
This is a fun story. This is maybe my favorite story about this. So I was still in like my later stages of high school, was doing acting in like theater and things like that. Nothing crazy, just school theater, community theater and that sort of thing. And I had an agent, and she's like, hey, here's this role. It's just like, so one of the guys in that diner, it's funny that you play that scene. Mm-hmm. That's one of the roles I was going for. And yeah, and the casting director from Los Angeles happened to be there when I went. So I go in, I do my, one line, like, oh, they're going to pick me next, whatever. And she's like, she kind of stops, and this is one of those, like, every actor's dream kind of thing. She stops, she's like, can you skate? And I was like, yeah, of course. Canadian, of course. Yeah. Played hockey, still do. And she's like, okay. She's like, take these sides for Stevie Weeks and just kind of read over them. And then when you're ready, come back and we'll do this scene. Okay. So I go down and I kind of read through. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is kind of neat. Sure. But I had read before the role was principal, like in the breakdown or whatever.
Yeah.
But I never really paid too much attention to it. So I go up, I do this read, and she's like, great, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know, going to high school. Like was my plan, like every other day. And she's like, I'd like you to go meet the director and go skate with him and everything like that. I was like, yeah, okay, sure. But I mean, that's the funny thing is I'm so naive at the time. It's just like, yeah, sure. Okay. And so I go the next day, meet Jay. We kind of hang around for a bit. We go do a skate. And I had to borrow my mom's car to like go to Canmore to do it. And so I drive out there and I'm wearing like sweatpants and like a fleece shirt because I remember going like, well, I'm skating, so I got to wear what I would wear skating. So just that total like, not aware of how crazy this is and how that sort of thing doesn't really happen all that much. And so I go, we skate, we hang around for a bit. We probably spent like 2 or 3 hours together. And then I just drove home and I was like, oh, okay, well, that was fun, neat. And then I got home, didn't hear anything for a while, and they were like, hey, okay, you're going to come on and you're going to do a big audition in front of all the producers and everybody. I was like, oh, okay. Do the thing. There's like probably 10 people in the room. And I just did it. And then another couple of weeks went by and I was like, oh, well, that was fun. And then, yeah, I got the call. You got the role. And it was that like jump around the living room kind of feeling. It's neat.
Can you imagine today if like it just doesn't happen? Like a director calls you, he's like, yeah, I want to spend a couple hours with you.
Yeah. And like, it's mind blowing. Yeah. And we like sat in his office. We kind of worked on scenes together and he was showing me like, oh, what the set deck is and set construction is going to look like. Like, here's what the rink's going to look like. And it was just like, yeah, this one-on-one moment where, yeah, you don't get that for the moment. Well, sometimes you meet the director when you're there.
Yeah.
On set shooting. So
that's cool. There's on that note, like there was some other, when I Googled this stuff, like Google Mystery Alaska, I hope you were there because Jay Roach, it was pretty recently, like in the last couple of years, he made an interview about the speech that Burt Reynolds gave. Were you there on set when it happened?
Right. Yes. On that day. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll just explain, like, so apparently towards that interview is that this movie was at a very sensitive time for Burt Reynolds because apparently he was up for an Emmy and an Oscar and had lost, I guess, everything. And then he was shooting this film and he blew up on set and then made this amazing apology to the entire crew. But tell us about that. Like if you were there, I guess.
I remember that. It was pretty, it was intense because I think we were filming, it was courtroom stuff, if I'm not mistaken. And we were shooting late, and I think Burt had to go, to the Oscars because he was nominated for Boogie Nights. Oh. And so we had all, good luck and whatever. But I think there's that anxiety that he must have had, I think at the time. And he just there was an argument, or maybe it was the other. No, sorry, it was a locker room scene when he was supposed to go, and there was this blow up. So we get up. They start an argument. There's a commotion. Let's just put it that way. I do remember the first AD saying, "Okay, guys, let's all take 5." And he's like, "No, sit down. We're all adults here." We're like, "Oh, okay, all right. We're just gonna sit here." And but it was, you could tell. And then he went. And then when he came back, I think that was the locker room thing. We were in the middle of a scene, and then this music starts playing. If I'm remembering correctly, and we're just like, what is happening? Like, why is there music playing? And then Burt does this wonderful, beautiful little kind of apology speech. So it was nice. He was great to work with. I loved him.
Yeah. So who put on music?
He had set it up. That I was like, okay, I'm going to apologize to everybody, and I'm going to make this a show. This is how I'm going to do this because I'm Burt Reynolds.
Man, I've seen so much about this movie, like even back then in interviews, it's like, and I watched another interview about Russell Crowe, but I wanted to hear about you from your personal experience about it on set. Like, how embarrassing was it when Russell got on skates? Like, was over on set being like, oh God, like we're gonna be here forever, or like, because he's openly vulnerable and be like, I apologize. I had to learn to skate, and that was probably the toughest thing I had to do.
Well, and I can't imagine, and I think that was our attitude at the time. It was like, I cannot imagine putting on, like, you're from Australia, New Zealand, and you're like, okay, you're going to do the exact opposite of what you've ever done in your whole entire life. You're going to get on skates and you're going to and I think we all had that feeling, and we had doubles also. So
oh, you did. That's another question I wanted to ask you. Well,
yeah. So we all kind of, it wasn't like we didn't roll our eyes at any moment. It was like, okay, you appreciated that he could even move, on skates, let alone having never skated before.
Yeah.
Same with Ron Eldard. I think Ron Eldard was the same, who played Skank, and he had never really played hockey or skated before, but I think he's one of those intense guys who's like, okay, I'm going to spend literally every waking moment on rollerblades. I think that was how he started doing it, but he did a tremendous job.
Wow.
Learning to skate and skating. So
that's cool. Yeah. My question was about was it actually, like, how much of you skating was it?
Oh, quite a bit. I think a guy named Dean was my skating double, and he I mean, we did a lot, as much as we could. I think there was an authenticity that Jay wanted to skating for us to be on camera, get those good shots. I think on wider shots, you probably see more so of our doubles. So, yeah, I did a lot, and it was exhausting, and your feet hurt, and it's 2 a.m, and you're skating, and there's a part of it, and it's cold, especially when we were outside. So
yeah, it's funny. It's like, when you say that, as an actor, I know how hard it is, but to someone who's not an actor would be like, oh, so sorry, actor. Oh, so hard. You have to skate and get paid. Oh.
I know. That's why I never really complain about too much, because I go, okay, if you take a step back and you look at it from a bigger perspective, it's like, yeah. Well, I'm also going to go to the trailer, have some snacks, and,
Yeah, which is great. There's a question here that I don't really understand, but I'm going to read it to you. You might have it there. It says, how do you choose what to audition for when you know the productions will overlap?
That's a good question. I think I used to. I mean, somebody sort of, like an agent or a manager, will sort of guide you through that process too. So you're getting advice from the people that you work with, or that you work with. And then, but I've also kind of been in the last, like I said, 2-3 years, like, I'll just do anything, because you never know which one, is going to do something for your career or whatever. So there was a time, I think last fall, late summer, fall, where I was doing, I think, 3 things at the same time. And there was one I was doing, it was a movie called They Who Surround Us. And it was shot in Vegreville, Alberta, which is about 3 hours from Calgary. And
I know Vegreville. Vegreville, isn't it the Ukrainian capital of the world now, or Canada?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I learned a lot about Ukrainian culture there. And it was also not, I'm good at doing things where there's like nobody around and you're stuck in this isolated little town. And, so I was doing that, and then I started another one, and then there was like the tail end of Tribal, and it was like, oh my gosh, like, so one night we were shooting until like midnight, and I had to be in Calgary at 8 to shoot. So it's a good question, because I think I should have not done that, and been like, I'm just going to focus on this, as opposed to I'm just going to fill the resume with everything that I could possibly do.
Anyways, you mentioned like, we're going to go back to Tribal, because you mentioned Tribal, and that's probably your most recent thing. And that's a decent part, like, that you were on a lot of episodes, and that was I was on it too. I mean, mine was a smaller role, but like, that was a decent production. And well, how did you get that role?
Funny enough, it was just I went in for one reading. Actually, this is a funny story too, so I went in and read for the casting director, Ryan Fazeki, who's the best. I've known her for like 20 some odd years now, so it's like, yeah, she's cool. But she just went in, read, did my thing. There was a lot of like, that role is very like science, forensics heavy. And so, prepped and did the whole thing. And then just, I have this thing where if I go in an audition, the minute I walk out that door, I just sort of forget about it because I have to, or else I get too involved or I care too much about if I get it or not. So I just kind of leave it. And then like a few weeks later, maybe a couple of weeks, but my agent gives me a ring and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Yeah, good. Everything's good." And he goes, "Hey, do you want to golf tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah, I could probably golf." And yeah, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, there's tea time here. I'm like, okay. And then he's like, yeah, he's like, oh, and then he gives me an update about this car that he ordered. I'm like, okay. He's like, oh. And towards the like tail end of that conversation, he's like, oh yeah, hey, you booked Tribal. I was like, maybe you want to lead with that, Jay. Like, come on, Jason, lead with it, man. So, yeah, it was just one audition, but so
wow.
that was kind of cool.
Like you just booked it, no callback, just bang, got it.
Yeah.
Who was your? I don't want to play favorites. Who was your favorite person to work with on Tribal? Because you were there for a lot.
I mean, everybody was great. There was not one person on that set that you're like, oh, but Brian Markinson, who plays Luke, Charles Bakansky, I think it's Bakansky. Anyway, he's a fascinating guy. Mm-hmm. And he's from New York and he's been in everything but lives in Vancouver now with his wife and his family. But he's just a really interesting guy. And so he cares about everybody. Like he'll have an in-depth conversation with anyone. Mm-hmm. And he's a plethora because he coaches too.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he gave me like, it's not in that like you're not very good, like here's some tips, but but
is that what he was really saying to you?
I mean, maybe that's what it was. Maybe I'm just in a mano a mano way, but he could have been giving me acting tips because he's like, God, this guy's not very good, but he's just funny, down to earth, experienced guy, and mm-hmm. I loved being around him and Jessica, and she's so kind, so nice, and just everybody, like Gary Chalk, who's from Vancouver as well, to find out like he's been the voice of Optimus Prime and like in the Transformers cartoon. And then he did the voice. You're just like, oh my God, you're the guy.
Wow. Neat.
It's just neat. Everybody came with their own little thing, and it was just very cool. And we've all stayed in touch and stayed in contact. So that was a great scene. Like that whole section of like that episode was just really good. I remember thinking like, he's good.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, it was a good. Yeah.
I was lucky. You know how sometimes you're lucky because of where you are on the docket too, right? Like we were the first scene of the day.
Yeah.
So everyone's and early in production, right? So they took a lot of time filming our scene, which was great.
Yeah, and it looks like $1 million too.
Yeah.
I remember being like, ooh, that looks good.
Thanks, man. Research for a hockey movie. So out of all the hockey things, like what scenes should I avoid in my hockey movie that you thought were maybe hard to shoot or a waste, or you thought that just didn't work?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm thinking about Mystery Alaska. I kind of think of the hockey moments in there. Yeah. And the one thing I will knock our movie a little bit for, mm-hmm. and this is maybe just an editing and maybe a continuity type thing mm-hmm. in the film, but there were parts where it was like, because if you come from a hockey mind, you're like, well, I didn't hear the whistle. The play hasn't stopped. Like, and then they just, there was a bit of a jump where it was like, oh, okay, we're still playing. But then there was this whole side conversation / argument with the referee or with the other team or things like that. Like there's a part where one of the Rangers like hits me over the boards and I go into the other bench.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin Durand, who plays Tree, he comes over and he's like, you're next. But it was like during a play. So I appreciate hockey movies, which I don't know if I've actually really seen one that does this well. Like good hockey rules, set within that thing. So I think even, like, yeah, have a whistle at the end of an argument or before an argument, stuff like that. Right.
Okay. And that was literally shooting, and in the movie there was no whistles. That's what you're saying. Like live, when you're like, everyone's kind of skating around like, do we stop? Like,
well, there was in certain moments, but I think and like I say, that might have been an editing issue where it was like, okay, we're just going to cut right to the next play, but it didn't have that like, okay, we're going to. There were a couple face-offs, in the film itself, but just the flow of the game, I think, was a little. Oh, don't shoot a puck in the air in slow motion.
Did they do that?
Yeah, right towards the end there. I don't want to give the movie away if nobody's seen it, but
it's fine. But no, but so why? Was it just like the most troublesome thing on earth, or you didn't think it looked aesthetically good, or what?
When you watch it, it takes you out of it for a minute, right? Because you think, oh, it's either that's corny or well, that doesn't work. So it makes your brain, it takes your mind out of what you're watching.
Mm-hmm. What would you say? I'm going to propose to you. What would you say? Would you think it would work if you had that shot, but everything was still in the shot? Like if it was floating, but in the background, you still saw everything. Would you think that would work?
Yeah, maybe. And maybe that was it. It was that it kind of felt sort of Mighty Duckish, in a way, where it was like, I love watching hockey films or anything like that, or shows or whatever. Anything there's a hockey thing where there's that real element of reality to what hockey is, and I would say, that. And I mean, God, the amount of rehearsals we did.
Oh man.
On plays, right? Like, I guess that would be the other thing is spend a lot of time, rehearsing, and because you're going to have certain plays or certain aspects of a hockey game, I would imagine, that are crucial to the script and crucial to the film, and so that's all got to be. It's like having a dance choreographer, except you're having a hockey choreographer.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys actually do that before the shoot days? Did you actually rehearse before?
Oh yeah. We would have like hockey practice. Like we were a hockey team. Basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'd go for practice. We'd work on the choreography. We had a hockey choreographer. Mm-hmm. So literally a hockey team. It's like, okay, the band's picking us up for practice, and we pick that bit of band and we'd go for practice. And
in Mystery Alaska, what do you think was the, like as a hockey movie or just in general for Mystery Alaska, what was the favorite scene that you shot, or a scene that you thought was like a critical scene to that hockey movie or any hockey movie in general?
The one that stands out to me is at the end when in Mystery, where we lose the game, and it's kind of the end of the game, and we have that moment, and I know there's a slow clap in that moment. Bert does a slow clap, so it's in like every slow clap montage for films. I think that was kind of a really poignant moment to have that moment to acknowledge the team, right? So it was almost like that community coming together, and that's hockey just in general, right? Where hockey is so much, you can have this playoff series and it's a bang it out, blood, sweat, tears series, but at the end of that series you shake hands, so that's what I love about hockey so much. I've done it where I'm even playing I play in a beer league still, and, on the ice I don't like any of them, but when you see them outside that ice rink, it's like hey, hey, good game. That was a good game. Or you shake hands at the end of the game. So that's, I think, one of the important things about hockey is that on the ice, it's a battle, but off the ice, it's you respect each other.
So you can be the devil on the ice, but still like the devil off the ice.
Exactly. It's a great way to put that.
No, I get it. Like it's all about like the sportsmanship part of it that you kind of leave it on the ice and let it goes on.
And I feel like others, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure other sports are like that too, but hockey just feels to me like maybe that's its Canadian roots and it's things like that, but it just feels like, it really does feel like it's a gentleman's game.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
And gentle, I don't know what the other, it's a human game.
I mean, it's funny though. Like I talk to other people out of countries and they're like, hockey, that's brutal, man. I will never, ever play that. You Canadians are crazy.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's a human game. It's fine.
But it kind of is. Like even there's so many little like mini games that are going on inside of a hockey game.
Good times. So there's a question here from Melissa. For your recent short films, Once Upon a Pandemic and Amera, how did you enjoy the writing process and directing? And do you plan to pursue exploring more opportunities in directing and writing?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the beginning, because I have a production company, and so we do a bunch of stuff. But we've never really, and I always thought, okay, well, you can just jump in and make a film or do a TV show or whatever. And then I realized, I think many years ago, that you really have to like prove to people that you can do this, right? You have to play the game. There's a game to it. You can't skip ahead. You can't. So you have to make shorts. You have to write. You have to keep practicing. These are all things I kind of learned for myself, and I love it. It's just so much fun. The whole process, the whole creation process. I do every part of production. Like I'll edit, I'll write, I'll shoot, I'll direct, I'll act, I'll everything just because I love it. And it's funny that Melissa, you say Amira, because I have this. It's almost done, and there's a track, and I'm editing it, and there's a track in Amira that I have at the end. But it's a pretty well-known track, or at least it would be well-known in certain circles. So you can't use it because obviously the budget's not going to have that cost to it. So I'm just writing it myself, like because I can't find the right song, and so I'm like, okay, I'll just do it myself. And so it's that activity of creation that I just love. Yeah, it was Once Upon a Pandemic. It was like I got inspired because I saw somebody. There was like a quarantine film festival. I thought, that sounds fun. Sure, I have nothing else to do, so I'll just write it up very quickly. So I don't know. I love, and actually, this is kind of one of the things that I quietly say this, but I've sort of loved about this time. Is you're forced to fill your time, and if I'm not creating while I'm sitting around at home, I get antsy. So I need to create. So it's been actually kind of nice to sort of write and do all the things that I just never really had time to do, and do them now.
Cool. So what's like your next projects that you're thinking about, or that you're in the middle of? Like, what's going on?
Well, it's interesting. So it's fun because Once Upon a Pandemic it's in a film festival now. It got festival.
Yeah, I see that.
Selected. I was like, oh, cool. I have no idea what to expect from that, and it's whatever. But so Tribal was supposed to start, I think, in July again. But otherwise, I've just been writing. So I'm writing. I kind of have 3 things that I'm writing at the moment. One is done, which is a drama called Black Iris. And then I have a huge fascination with airplanes. And I read this crazy story about an old plane that, anyway, ended up doing this kind of around the world trip that they didn't plan on doing. So I've been writing that. And then it's a kind of a thriller horror that I'm writing called Our Daily Dead.
Well, that's cool, man. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I love doing it. And for me, it comes in, I don't know how you are when you're writing. For me, I go in these spurts where it's like, I won't write for days or weeks. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to spend the next 80, hours doing this. Sometimes.
Yeah, everyone has their own process,
Yeah.
I'd say like you're an experienced actor. I would say I'm also kind of an experienced actor, but I find that all these things, if you're an experienced actor or not, like there's always cool advice that every actor has to give, So what's your best advice to I could say newbie actors or any actor in general? What's your best advice to actors?
Have fun. I think that's I think, I don't, when I'm on set, I do the work and I, get into it and everything like that. But really, you're there you're just a part of a cog. So,
Yeah.
And I kind of think like around that, you're part of a big group and you're part of a collective that has one goal, and to make the best TV show or the best film or whatever. So I think being a part of that, you know what? Here, I'll tie this back. Russell Crowe had this saying. We had this saying when we were doing Mystery Alaska. And he goes, it was a bit of a chant that we would do. And it was not above you, not below you, right with you. And I always loved that, where it was like, yeah, just like we're all on the same level playing field, no matter what you're doing on set. And treat everybody with respect. You will get that respect. So
that's like profound. And I also, although, being a rugby player myself, that sounds like a rugby chant.
It probably was, to be honest. He's a huge, I think it's the All Blacks. I think that's his rugby team. Yeah.
One is, who's your favorite actor of all time? And two, who have you worked with that has just blown your mind? You're like, man, like I've met some, like, I'm like, it'll take me 50 years to get to the level. Like, this is a Jedi that I'm working with. Like,
my favorite actor, I kind of have a couple. Robin Williams was always my favorite, always has been. Just his ability to be outright hilarious and so funny, but also do very serious, heartfelt things. So, yeah, Robin Williams was always. Dead Poets Society is like one of my favorite movies, and so, yeah, I think I just liked him ever since. So sad that I never got to meet him. Like that, I was pretty. Yeah, it was too bad.
Well, who you work with? Like, who have you worked with that you're just like, man, this is just like the most amazing actor? I know you mentioned Brian.
Yeah, Brian is great. But then, even I did a film called Chasing Justice this fall, and it's about the Stephen Truscott thing. If it's kind of an older thing that I've sort of forgotten about, but Kristen Booth plays Marlene Truscott in the film, and she's based out of Toronto. She's actually in Once Upon a Pandemic, but she's what she brings on set. You're just like, wow. Sorry, I was kind of thinking back as I was saying that, but Kristen is amazing. She's just so giving and so very, very good at what she does, and she's amazing. The other one, like going way back, I did like a Beach Boys miniseries, and Kevin Dunn.
Okay.
He's been in everything. If you Google Kevin Dunn, he's literally, you'd be like, oh yeah, that guy. He's on Veep and whatever, but he was just he played our dad. I played a Beach Boy, and he played Murray, our dad, and he's just such a good actor. Just powerful and in it, and great guy.
And, on a final note, is there anything else, any advice you want to give everyone? It could be about anything, acting, film career.
This is something my dad said to me. And because I think I have been very guilty of this, is where if I'm creating something, it has to be perfect before I tell anybody or I show it or whatever. There's a bit of and I used to, it's not perfect, it's not great, I'm scared. But my dad always had the saying, and he said, throw enough against the wall and something's bound to stick. And there's kind of that like, and you learn so much from those failures and the things that don't work. And yeah, it may like be like, oh gosh, that didn't work. But I love the idea of just keep going, because you never know. I have this, you know, thought all the time that's like that something's going to stick, something's going to happen. And so, you know, just keep throwing that against the wall. And or the other saying he had is like, in all of this, there's got to be a pony in there somewhere. So
Man, that's a big pile that he's going through.
Yeah. So I kind of love that, you know, even if this doesn't work, or this doesn't work, or that doesn't work, something will down the road. Something will work.
Yeah, that's some good advice, man. And in final, I just want to like tell everyone, you know, go add your Instagram, Ryan Northcott. And what are we looking forward to? So there's going to be a tribal part season 2 for you.
Yes. Yeah. It got renewed for season 2. We just don't know when we're going to film it yet.
So for everyone out there, I'm going to give everyone homework to know more about you, Ryan. 1, you got to go see Mystery Alaska for sure. 2, watch every episode of Tribal, at least the ones you're in. And and watch your short film, man. It's all great. You're a great actor, man. Like you.
Chelsey, I appreciate that. That's awesome. It's been a fun interview.